Hello everyone! Chromie has been summoned to battle within the Nexus, so I thought it would be a good idea to sit down and talk about what this bronze dragon has done for the story. Let's begin, shall we? Chromie, the female gnome, is called Chronormu within her bronze dragon form, and she's part of the bronze Dragonflight. They're charged with safeguarding the purity of time, as in the old days it was said that there was only one true timeline which they had to protect. Without the truth of time, as it's meant to unfold, more will be lost than you could possibly imagine. The fabric of reality would unravel, so it was up to the bronze Dragonflight, Chromie included, to observe the timelines and make sure that time flowed the way that it was supposed to. Her leader Nosdormu was given this information as the blessing of the Titans was placed upon him, and on top of that, they also showed him his moment of demise to teach him that despite his amazing powers, he still had to answer to time itself. It was a terrible burden, but a wise lesson all the same, and we'll come back to this later on in the video. Let's first talk a little bit more about Chromie. The first time that we see her show up in the game was during classic World of Warcraft in one of the more tragic storylines. It all begins with Marlene Redpath, a spirit that died during the Battle of Darrow Shire. So many died that day, yet she can't find eternal peace since she was told to hide her little niece Pamela and she doesn't know what happened to her. Adventurers are asked to investigate, and within Darrow Shire we find out that fate wasn't kind to Pamela either. She too has become a spirit. Bad people whisper to her and she wants her daddy to make them go away, but her daddy isn't there. Sometimes, when it gets dark and lonely, all she wants to do is play with her little doll which she left in town. We can't bring back her daddy right now, but the least we can do is bring back her little doll and inform her aunt of what happened to Pamela. Marlene is devastated to find out what happened to her niece. She wishes that Joseph could once again be with his daughter, but this isn't possible. His soul was twisted by the scourge and he had become a monster, and yet perhaps there is a chance to change his fate. A strange historian, a strange gnome by the name of Chromie, has taken up residence within Anderhall. We're told to collect Joseph's wedding ring from his grave and bring it to her. Perhaps with Chromie's aid, we can do something to help reunite Pamela with her father. Within the Anderhall Inn, we find the bronze dragon, and thankfully she is willing to help us, yet she didn't come here without a reason, and she also requests our aid with a quest of her own. Someone has been tampering with the timeline, most likely the Scourge, and the bronze Dragonflight, they've set up a base of operations to mend the damage. They're working from a different timeline to not overly contaminate the timeline that they're trying to heal, but to continue to do this, to continue their spell, they'll need some trinkets found within lockboxes across the ruined city. On top of that, we're also asked to aid with the healing by rooting out temporal parasites that infest the silos of Anderhall. Upon finishing the quest, Chromie rewards us and she says, "I see no harm in rewarding you for your assistance, mortal. Your greatest feats are to come, and the awarding of a bauble will certainly not alter your future destiny. Your continued aid, however, is something that I and the Dragonflight could use." It seems that rewarding us in that moment would not tamper with the overall timeline, and with that out of the way, we focus once more on reuniting Pamela with her father. After obtaining the Annals of Darrow Shire, we read about the battle at Darrow Shire and what exactly happened to Joseph Redpath. The Battle of Darrow Shire took place in the middle of the Second War, when Scourge forces rampaged across Lordaeron. Darrow Shire was cut off from the bulk of Alliance forces, but the town was bolstered by a company of troops, a contingent of the Paladins of the Silver Hand, and a staunch group of local militia led by Captain Joseph Redpath. The Scourge's first assaults on Darrow Shire were sparse. Small groups of marauding skeletons and corpses wandered the outskirts of the village and were repelled. But the Scourge were not balked by the defenders' tenacity, and they responded in kind. Soon after the first wave of attacks, a second wave emerged. Champion ghouls, servants of the ghoul lord Horgus, screamed down from the hills and clashed with beleaguered Darrow Shire defenders. The defenders weakened, but were relieved by paladins, disciples of the Silver Hand. Their leader, Davil Crockford, was a native of Darrow Shire. He brought his followers to the village when he heard of the impending attack, and together with the defenders, they held back the servants of Horgus. When Horgus himself entered the battle, he met with Davil. For many minutes they fought, and Davil eventually prevailed. But he suffered a mortal wound and died soon after defeating the Ghoul Lords. The battle continued, and Captain Redpath led his militia bravely, and it might have been won had the captain not been corrupted by the Death Knight Marduk the Black. In the middle of the fray, Marduk rode up to Redpath, and with black magic he tore loose Redpath's spirit, twisting it into an evil shadow of the brave captain. The corrupted Captain Redpath then spread his evil taint amongst the defenders of Darrow Shire, who betrayed their allies and slaughtered them. They then turned on the town of Darrow Shire and killed all who hid in their homes. The remaining Scourge army, along with the corrupted spirits of Captain Redpath, then left the ravaged village of Darrow Shire and tore into Lordaeron, adding to the pain and death of the Second War. That is how history is written, and Chromie uses her magic to add more pages to the annals, describing what happened after these events. For example, Joseph Redpath, he was eventually taken down by Lion's troops at Garen's Withering, while his brother, Carlin Redpath, he survived and eventually joined the Argent Dawn. We're told to bring this book to Carlin, and after a long quest chain of obtaining relics of the past, relics that Chromie will use in her spell, we're ready to rewrite history. At Darrow Shire, we take place in the Battle of the Past, and we're told that two things must happen. Devil must survive beyond the death of Horgus, and Joseph Redpath must survive to be corrupted and defeated. After defeating the corrupted Redpath, his spirit is saved, and we reunite little Pamela with her father, who she's been missing for years. The Bronze Dragonflight's duty is to safeguard the purity of the timeline, but apparently this minor alteration, this was possible, and it shows that Chromie, she has a much larger affinity for mortals than the rest of her kind. She went out of her way to help us and these spirits, and this was only the first time that she showed up in the story. Now with the Burning Crusade, we were allowed entrance into the Caverns of Time and aid the Bronze Dragonflight with safeguarding the timeline. At first, we aided Thrall with his escape from Durnholt, we aided Medivh with the opening of the Dark Portal, and we made sure that the battle for Mount Hyjal took place just as it was supposed to happen. Now during the first two instances, we found out about a Dragonflight called the Infinite Dragonflight, yet their purpose and their goals was not really explained. It seemed like they wanted to alter time. They wanted to prevent Thrall from escaping, and by doing so, prevent him from forming the Horde. They wanted to prevent Medivh from opening the Dark Portal, and by doing so, not bring the Orcs to Azeroth in the first place. Now you might say that preventing the war between the Alliance and Horde would be a great thing, but apparently things happened just the way that they were supposed to happen, and we had to make sure that the timeline stayed pure. Now during Wrath of the Lich King, we also helped out with the culling of Stratholme, and this is where Chromie showed up once again. The Infinite Dragonflight wants to prevent Arthas from discovering the Plague Grain, which would then lead to his choice of purging the city, and him eventually becoming the Lich King. This is apparently another key point in time, something that has to happen, so we're sent on the task of dispelling the illusion, making Arthas discover what's going on, and eventually aid him with defeating Mal'Ganis. Again, it's the Infinite Dragonflight that wants to mess around with time, so we have to discover who they are, what they want, and most of all, who's leading them. At Wormrest Temple, Chromie acts as ambassador of the Bronze Dragonflight, and she gives us the Hourglass of Eternity to protect at the Bronze Dragon Shrine. If we protect it long enough, the leader of the Infinite Dragonflight should be revealed, but surprisingly enough, it's actually the image of Nosdormu that shows up. It doesn't make any sense to Chromie, but at least she's happy that we've seen the Lord of Time, since at that point in time nobody had any idea as to where or when their leader had gone. Later on, we're sent on the same mission, only this time we have to help out our past self with fulfilling their mission, as our future self helped us out the first time, and by doing so, we can close this time loop. Timey-wimey stuff, everybody, but this was the first clue as to figuring out who was leading the Infinite Dragonflight, since it was none other than Nosdormu himself. As I mentioned at the start, Nosdormu was shown his moment of demise to teach him that not even he was above death and that the timeline had to stay pure. Yet in one of the timelines, or perhaps in all of them, a future not yet shown, Nosdormu was tricked by the old gods into trying to subvert his mortality. As a result, Nosdormu shattered the time ways and created the Infinite Dragonflight, jeopardizing the very future of Azeroth.
You crawl unwitting like a blind, writhing worm towards endless madness and despair. I have witnessed the true end time. This is a blessing you simply cannot comprehend.
So by abusing his power, by preventing his own death, Nosdormu and his Bronze Dragonflight, they became corrupted, and he was known as Moruzand. During the events of the Cataclysm, we teamed up with Nosdormu before he was corrupted. As we took on his corrupted form, we claimed the Dragon Soul from the past, and Thrall used it to defeat Deathwing and prevent the Hour of Twilight, the moment where the old gods would free themselves out of their prisons and rule the world once more. This seems to be the goal of the infinite Dragonflight. Mess around with time in such a way that the old gods would be able to liberate themselves and rule the world again. If you prevent Medivh from opening up the Dark Portal, or if you prevent Thrall from escaping Durnholt, then you would have no Goel to assist the aspects during the Cataclysm. Prevent Arthas from becoming the Lich King, and you have no armies traveling to Northrend and figuring out that Yogg-Saron was breaking out of his prison. That's just my interpretation and speculation though. When it comes to time travel, there are so many situations to consider, it becomes near impossible to predict how a future would go down. Regardless, this video is not about time travel in general, this one is about Chromie, and during the Cataclysm, she showed up at the end of the Well of Eternity dungeon, as well as during the Protectors of Hyjal daily quest, where she assisted us not in her full dragon form, but in a bronze whelpling form. It's possible that this version of Chromie was much younger compared to the ones that we've seen in, for example, the Culling of Strathholm. The Chromie that shows up at the end of the Well of Eternity also says, "What can I do for you, stranger?" implying that for Chromie, this is the first time that we meet her. With the defeat of Deathwing, the aspects apparently fulfilled their destiny, and they, together with their flights, have lost a great deal of their power. Chromie stands next to a fragment of Deathwing's jaw, allowing players to see what exactly happened at the end of the Cataclysm. With the Bronze Dragonflight losing so much of their power, Nosdormu claims that the Time Ways are no longer their concern. They are beyond their ability to control, and from here on out, protecting history would fall upon mortal shoulders. This is described within the novel Dawn of the Aspects, but the Blue Dragon Caligos, he doesn't agree with the others, and he believes that they can still have a purpose in the worlds. He reminds the aspects of their history together, of what they were before they were turned into the aspects. And during Mr. Pandaria, we saw the rise of a whole new faction called the Time Walkers. Mortals and bronze dragons work together to safeguard the Time Ways at any cost, and on the Timeless Isle, we work together with a bronze dragon called Kairos Dormu.
The presence of the Timeless Isle is proof that many things are possible beyond the boundaries of linear thinking.
You have the power to change your destiny. Return
Indeed.
twice as
After
powerful.
the Cataclysm, my flight's connection to the Time Ways
Do not
forever
mistake the power
changed.
that darkness
What if it
offers
were
for
possible
true
to shape
strength.
and mold time as you would a ball of clay? What possibilities await? What new worlds could we create?
I like the way you think.
Kairos is quite frustrated with how they lost their power and how they can only see glimpses of the future now, but not all hope is lost. He has a device called Vision of Time, an hourglass, which after filling it with magic from the Timeless Isle, we can use it to see glimpses of the past, future, and even possible futures. This is not the only use though, and after Mr. Pandaria, after Garrus was defeated, imprisoned, and they placed him on trial, we found out that the Vision of Time was going to be used during the trial itself. The novel War Crimes describes how Kairos Dormu would assist Bane in defending Garrosh, while Chromie would assist Rhonda in a role as accuser, as they both used the Vision of Time to show moments of the past. This was to not only argue the case itself with just words, but to actually show the courtroom what had happened. Now you might wonder if a trial has any place in World of Warcraft, but in the end, it didn't really matter. The Black Dragon Rephion, he had made plans and schemes with Kairos to liberate Garrosh and bring him to a different reality. As the trial was coming to an end, Chromie caught Kairos in the act of tinkering with their device, and she asked him what the hell he was doing. Next thing she knew, she woke up, locked away, as Kairos tossed the device on the floor, creating a time wave for him and Garrosh to escape. A massive battle took place at the Temple of the White Tiger, with Chromie herself assisting in fighting off the enemy, and she explained to the others what Kairos had done. "We once knew the time ways inside and out," she began. "We could see the past and the future with perfect clarity. Our flight's charge, from the moment Nosdormu became our aspect, was to protect the sanctity of the timeline, and we were given vast power to do this. Now, things aren't quite so clear. We can still travel the time ways, but we don't have that perfect knowledge anymore. That's why we enlisted mortals to help us keep the timeline safe, but there have been some mutterings. Some of us think that perhaps we should use what skills we have left to manipulate the time ways. Alter the past, change the future to something better." She smiled sadly. Of course, who's to say what is better? Especially when we don't have the perfect insight we once did. That's what's held most of us back, but it's obvious now that Kairos was amongst those who thought that the bronze dragons could and should change things. He always did like to tinker. Her voice trailed off. This all seemed to point towards Kairos birthing the infinite Dragonflight. Altering time to their own desire seems to fit perfectly with their faction, yet things didn't work out the way that they had planned. Garrosh and Kairos, they arrived in alternate Draenor, but Garrosh didn't feel like becoming another puppet. He wasn't about to take orders from some bronze dragon and do what Kairos and Rephion had planned, namely form the Iron Horde and have that horde help us with fighting against the Legion. Instead, Garrosh choked the life out of Kairos and moved ahead to form the Iron Horde, not to fight against the demons, but to invade our Azeroth and get him his revenge. This led into the expansion Warlords of Draenor, where the Dark Portal turned red. We took the battle to the Iron Horde on alternate Draenor, and eventually we teamed up with Khadgar and Chromie, and we discovered what happened to Kairos.
Come back in one piece.
The trail will not be easy to follow. Start by heading east.
We'll track you from the air. Follow the trail of time anomalies like this. Here! It looks like Garrosh came down this way alone after he first arrived on Draenor. But where was Kairos?
Look at Garrosh. His hands are bound, but he's alone. When did he and Kairos part ways?
That ogre shouldn't be here. Something strange must have happened up on this ridge.
Who is that?
That's Kairos in disguise. Garrosh killed him. But where is the body?
We must be close. Is this him?
It is. The final resting place of Kairos Dormu.
Betrayed by Garrosh the moment they arrived on Draenor.
Laughter turned to shrieks. The jagged glass tore through flesh easily, not breaking even as it sliced through muscle and glanced off bone. Garrosh kept a firm grip on the shard's bronze sculpture with his manacled hands. Power surged into the glass. Bronze scales appeared and disappeared on Kairos' skin. He was trying to use the shard, trying to shift back into his dragon form. It wasn't working. Garrosh shoved him over and followed him to the ground, dragging the sharp edge around Kairos' shoulder until it met the collarbone and had to be pulled free. The shrieks grew louder. Weak orcish hands struck out, trying to push Garrosh away. He lowered his face to mere inches from the bronze dragon's eyes and buried the shard in his throat. Shrieks turned into gurgling. Garrosh held the shard firm, ignoring the torrents of energy racing in and out of the glass, focusing instead on the total surprise in Kairos' eyes. No more, Garrosh said. No more puppeteers hiding in the shadows. No more slavers offering corrupted power. No more of the likes of you. The orcs will be free of all masters. Garrosh twisted the shard and dragged it down into Kairos' chest, stabbing again and again. Blood spilled onto the hilltop. Not orcish blood, not the blood of any creature that had ever walked on this world, but the land would drink it all the same. Finally, he pulled the shard free and stood. Kairos convulsed on the ground. Garrosh watched, curious. He had never killed a bronze dragon before. The shard trembled in his grip, beating in time with the dragon's final heartbeats. Bronze mist, each mote thick as a grain of sand, moved away from Kairos. It was not dispersing like smoke, but rather pulling together into a thin, rope-like vortex, twisting away into nothing, as though being drawn away from this world. When the bronze mist was gone, the shard was quiet. Kairos' eyes were wide open, and he breathed no more. Garrosh waited. He wanted to be sure. Minutes passed before he grunted and nodded. An easier end than you deserved. He left the body where it lay. Any who happened upon it would simply see an orc who had angered someone he shouldn't have.
For Azeroth.
Sorry for all the times you're about to get killed. If it's any consolation, you won't remember any of them.
We will find a way through this. Be vigilant, friend. Very good. I will distract Kairos while you attack.
If anyone gets too hurt, I'll undo your wounds.
You are War Chief, no longer Hellscream. You're free because I willed it. You live because I will it. You will join your father and rally the old Orc clans because I will it.
Kairos, what did you want? Why did you need an army?
Not just one. An infinite number of armies, across an infinite number of worlds. I would be infinite! Ah! Hellscream! Without me! Who?
Victory! Champion, you did it!
Good night, my time-lost prince.
And that's where the story of Chromie, or Chronormu, ends, at least for this moment. Now, some final tidbits that might be fun to mention at the end. Chronormu is actually a male name amongst the bronze dragons. Nosdormu, Chronormu, that mu at the end is to indicate a male, whereas the female names, they all end with mi. You got Soridormi, Alurmi, yet nearly all of the other records, they describe Chromie as a female. I think it's left for personal interpretation as to what gender Chromie falls under. In the end, what's in a name? When used as selfie camera, while under the effects of photobomb, Chromie is one of the NPCs that has a chance to appear, and she also tossed a coin into the Dalaran fountain, which reads, "Just once, I wish someone would greet me without making a stupid joke about gnomes or time travel."
Haven't we done this before?
And that's all we have for Chromie when it comes to Warcraft. And now this bronze dragon enters the Nexus to battle. I'll play a full cinematic at the end of the video, but during it, this happens.
In the beginning. Wait a minute, that's not... Hold on. In our most desperate hour. Whoops! No, way too far!
Chromie shows us a piece of the StarCraft universe, and we see many StarCraft references before. Is this confirmation that the Warcraft universe and the StarCraft universe are connected? Does the bronze Dragonflight not only have the power to see alternate realities, alternate timelines, but also completely different franchises? Or is this just a fun meta joke that they decided to pull with the cinematic? I'll leave that up to you to decide. Now, if you want more information about the whole time travel thing in World of Warcraft, I'll link a video that I've done before in which I talk more about the infinite Dragonflight and time travel in general. As always, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and until next time, guys. See ya!
In the beginning. Wait a minute, that's not... Hold on. In our most desperate hour. Whoops! No, way too far! The Nexus! The marvelous anomaly to which the bronze Dragonflight has sent me as their champion! Oh, hello again! Or is this the first time we've met? You might ask why, as a dragon, would I choose to be this size? Meh, it just works for me. I'm here to keep the very fabric of time and space from unraveling like that. Everyone knows it's not possible to be in several places at the same time. The past you, future you, and future super creepy you? That's different times at the same place, and that's when it gets fun! Don't worry, that's gonna get nerfed. Let's review. Through all time and space, there's more power hidden in the smallest things than you will ever know.